the recent acquisitions we've seen of Lytics, ActionIQ, mParticle, and there will likely be more to come. I think it's two real trends converging, probably more than two, but I'll start with two. So the first one is just this longer term trend of data ownership and privacy. With a lot of these systems, you're basically either generating new data from web events or interactions that your customers are having with your own properties, or if you want to use the rest of the sensitive data that you have on your customers, like your transactions data, anything with financial information is typically housed in a data warehouse these days. You have to actually send it to these systems. And by sending it to those systems, a couple things are introduced. One is latency and a little bit of mistrust from the marketing teams, because there's always questions about how fresh is this data? Is it actually mapped to the right, objects and fields? You have to usually represent the data in objects and fields that these systems have, and not the way that your company actually represents and views the data. So the concept that you have as a marketer of like customers who have done X, Y, or Z may actually be a totally different audience or a totally different way of thinking about your customers once you've kind of mapped it to those systems. Mapping it to the systems also adds a lot of time in terms of onboarding with the system. So after you actually purchase them, there was a recent stat, like 90% of marketers aren't happy with their CDP, or their CDP doesn't have the functionality that they need to do the jobs that they need to do. A lot of that just comes from these things are bought and kept on shelves and not really implemented, or use cases don't go live quickly. So there's this trend of not wanting to deal with that, and at the same time data ownership from a privacy perspective. When you think about the trust that especially these larger companies, but all companies are building with their customers through their products and services and interacting with them, that trust is something that you want to maintain ownership of within your privacy boundary as a company, within your VPCs, when we talk about the technical place where this data is sitting. And when you create copies of your data in different systems, it just gives you more surfaces that could be prone to risk in terms of not actually exposing that to actors or to entities that shouldn't have access to that data. So there's a privacy side, and then just the value. This is your strategic asset as a company, and what you know about your customers is really a key piece of the value that you can bring to them and your differentiation in the market and the way that you talk to them. So this data ownership and privacy trend is something we've seen for a long time. The second trend is the cost of capital over the past few years. And a lot of these companies raised a heck of a lot of money. And what that does is it makes you beholden to the targets that those providers of the funds have. Growth at all costs can lead to less optionality in how you're building the product to future-proof it, and also growing in an unsustainable way. And profitability is really important, and being able to grow in a way that's sustainable. I think what you'll see is a lot of these folks who raised tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars during that period when cash was really cheap, and who have kind of done multiple rounds to keep kind of supporting the growth trajectories that they wanted to have while they weren't profitable themselves. Has led to a lot of tough financial situations where now that capital is a little bit less cheap, the funding kind of gets cut off. So other options need to be put on the table, like exiting.